So this week's topic is ego deaths. And the reason I made this the topic was not so much because I wanted to talk about self-effacement all the time, which is a great topic to talk about, but it's more like Baba really does it in tiny ways. He slowly just takes little parts of us because he's so compassionate that he doesn't do it all at once. And I think it's really important to share those experiences because so much wisdom and clarity comes from those ego deaths that we have. And then it's really like he's making room for more of him to fill us up, right? Alan Manukian told me this analogy. I forget who told him, but it's kind of like Baba just has to turn us in this circle, right? And he gives us a little tug, he just tries to move our shoulder and we go like this. And we're like, get away from me, get away from me. So finally, in order for us to turn, he has to rip us. And so all the while we're like, well, I didn't see all that stuff in between, right? And in the meantime, Baba was trying to slowly take us through, but we weren't letting go. And so he has to do these little ego deaths. But I did send out an email. So can I get someone to read it tonight? Bob, you're looking real nice with your haircut. You might want to read this. What do you think?
Yeah.
You're down?
I had to get a haircut. I'm going to my granddaughter's high school graduation next week.
Oh, wow. You got a fancy event there.
Yeah.
Trying to pull it up. All right. I'm going to have to do the scroll on this. Sorry. Okay. Screen share. All right. You can see it?
No. Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay. Jai Baba All. This week, we will be discussing the way Baba slowly brings us closer to him through our ego deaths. All of these little deaths lead us to the ultimate death-oneness with him. Baba, in his compassion, destroys us little by little. This is what I mean by ego deaths, all the little parts of yourself you have had to let go of throughout your life. I have used this analogy before, but life with Baba is a whiteboard. He tells us to draw him a beautiful picture. So we spend so much time creating what we believe is a masterpiece. We become so enamored with our drawing that we forget the reason we started it all along. That is the moment Baba rubs his hand across the board and tells us to start over. We feel heartbroken. But once we begin to draw another picture, a wave of gratitude washes over us. Baba wasn't taking anything away. He was making room for something better. Baba slowly kills our ego in countless ways. Perhaps you have had to let go of a person you built your identity on, a spouse, a family member, etc. Maybe you spent your whole life building a career, and then, once it got going, Baba took it away from you. What was that like? What was he making room for? Sometimes he does it softly, and sometimes not so much. Often the most painful part of the spiritual path is grieving the past versions of you. Is the grief a natural part of this? Or is it a sign of our lack of trust in his plan? How many versions of yourself have you had to let go of along the way? Was there one in particular that stands out to you and taught you immense lessons? Are you grateful now? Do you still question why Baba had to destroy that part of you? Very excited about this topic. In his love, Margi and Peter.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. And your haircut looks great. Now everyone on YouTube has seen it. If I mentioned your haircut and I didn't make you read, no one would have been able to see your hair on YouTube. Anyway. Oh, hi, Peter. So does anybody have anything that comes to mind about this topic right away? Or does anything jump out? Not so much? All right, don't all go at once, guys.
What's the topic?
Ego deaths.
Ego death? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
One of the things that was in the letter that made me think of something that it's been a practice of mine or a habit or whatever you want to call it. I have clients who I sell product to, and sometimes I'll get really good clients and others will be just, like just there and nothing particularly special. But sometimes I'll lose a big client for one reason or another. They go out of business, they retire, whatever it is, or they change their system. But Baba gave me an idea on how to deal with it. Basically, what I say is, it was fun while it lasted, and that seems to satisfy me.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
really feel it, but for that period of time, it was great. I was fortunate.
Yeah. No, that's a really beautiful way to look at it. I mean, you're onto something there. I
Yeah.
think it's it's so hard to get to that place, but I think that's where we all want to be. It's like, oh yeah, that was fun while it lasted. And my question is like, why do we hold on so tightly when we could see it the way you're seeing it, where it's like, oh, that was fun while it lasted, right? Even think about a relationship or anything that we've had to let go of. It's like, why we tend to see what we did wrong to make it end instead of just being like, wow, look at how much fun that was. And now it's time to let it go. But Bob, I saw you had your hand up. Oh, you're muted. Your hand's up, but you're muted.
Okay. The part that you wrote about kind of things that we've done over time and the people we take ourselves to be, the roles we kind of build for ourselves. The one that I struggle with more and more the older I get is this writing poetry thing that I've done for many, many years. And I know that, I try to be honest, and I try to write things that will please Baba and that my fellow Baba lovers will enjoy. But I also know that I can't help, my ego is still involved in there. And I get that. I try to be aware of it, but I'm not always. And the older I get, the less writing I seem to do because, well, I'm going on 77 and words just disappear. They don't come the way they used to. No matter how I sit and, try to do things. And so it brings some fear sometimes, frankly. So it sort of goes back and forth between, at times I can feel like I can completely entrust it to Baba. Look, if you don't want me to do this anymore, fine. But then that, as the day goes on, morphs into lots of other different feelings, sort of going back and forth. And it's a real kind of it's a difficult game. It's a difficult effort trying to build that much trust with something that I have taken myself, so much trust in Baba for something that I have taken myself to be, attachment, obviously, for so long. So, okay.
All right, Diane and Terry. You guys are on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
Jay Baba. So we were at a meeting last night, and I don't know where Baba said it or where it's written, but basically he said, light a match to it, meaning all the extra stuff, just light a match to it. And it really works. It's amazing. If you don't hang on and you just light a match to it, before you know it, it's out of your, I don't know. It's just really helpful with ego stuff, I think. I've just learned it, but I've practiced it all day today, and it was really amazing. So I'm going to see if it's going to keep happening, and I thought I would share it with you all.
And it's pre-Dooney Day, so it kind of gives you also the fast one.
What's the other one?
When I think about when I've been brokenhearted in my life, and I didn't know what was going to happen next because that person wasn't in my life anymore. And then when I fast forward and I think, dodged a bullet there, and or look at what other great gifts came because I was shown an exit door. And when I think about what you were writing, it's like Baba says, we don't know what's in store for us. So to hold on fast onto what you think is right, if it's slipping away, it's slipping away for a reason. So I need to be reminded of that. And you all have permission to use it against me.
Dear Baba.
You know, something
Good
I'd say to Baba, you know, when I'm like going through something, I'm like, Baba, I'm like a woman with an epidural. Like if I'm saying stop when you're beating me up, I don't want you to actually stop. And I've told Baba that before. It's like, you know, when the woman's like, don't let me get the epidural. And that's what I tell Baba is like, don't give me the epidural. But anyway.
All right. Next up is Ron. Good evening, Ron.
Hi.
Oh wait, you're muted.
You're on
Ron.
mute again. There you
Sorry about it. Okay, so what Terry, I think, was saying, I think what the significance of that relates to something I read one time. When you're attached to something, one thing you can do, like if you have a favorite mug or something like that, you know, like I have this mug, it's got the mischievous chicken on it. I bought it, I think, like 35 or 40 years ago, probably 40 years ago. I've been drinking out of it every morning for 40 years, right? Yeah, it's really special. But I think, so what this one writer said as a recommendation was, see it in your mind's eye, crashing to the floor into, you know, 5 or 6 pieces, and you'll never be able to drink out of it again. Just see it that way and experience it. Having lost that mug, you're not going to be able to drink out of it anymore at a certain point when it falls and smashes. And then enjoy the mug the rest, you know, until for as long as it's there. The other thing is, you know, a lot of times I think if somebody is unsure if they want to continue in a particular pursuit or make a certain decision, if they're very attached to it, then the idea of whether they go this way or that way is they want to make the right decision, right? But so sometimes people, I'm not saying that Bob asked Baba what he should do, if he should continue writing poetry or retire from doing that. But some people ask Baba that. But I think the answer, more than not, is do whatever you're drawn to do. I think Baba would have us do the thing that you like, or do it if it makes you happy. If it's not clear enough, then you could do it one way or the other. It really doesn't matter to Baba. Baba is interested in something completely different than whether you write poetry or drink out of a particular mug. So that's my thought on it.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Ron. I think that, I mean, for me personally, like one of my biggest ego deaths has been the reality that Baba, like you can't impress Baba, right? You know, we keep trying to do all these things that's going to impress Baba and like make him so proud of us. But no matter what, we can't escape him, and he's always going to love us, right? Like, you know, I've often in my life tried to make choices that I felt like were going to secure Baba loving me or secure my relationship with Baba or something like that. But it's such a foolish thought, because even if I moved to Alaska and if that made me happy, Baba's going to be there with me in that happiness, you know, and he's going to love me no matter what. So yeah, really, really beautiful point.
All right, and Tony.
Hi, nothing big major plan to say. Just a couple of thoughts. Well, the one is if you see someone or something as your salvation, that's going to be like a ripe invitation for Baba to shake you loose. And that's a good thing. It's a really good thing. But the more you think that thing or that person or that profession is your salvation, yeah, then it can feel like a death, but it's the death of nothing that's real. When I first came to Baba, within that first year, I was at a society meeting and some woman had come down from Albany, from Darwin's group, and she shared about some person who was a musician, I think a woman who played like the French horn or something. And Baba gave her instructions to stop playing, to not play it anymore. And her point to me was, so Baba may ask you to give up anything and I was horrified because music is one of the things where Baba lives in me. But I couldn't distinguish that at the time between something that I considered my salvation. But he was not going to take that. Yeah, I think things that you love without attachment, that you love because joy flows through you, Baba flows through you. I don't think he wants to mess with that because that's where he's getting to express himself. And the other stuff is I know the places where I'm stuck and where I'm blocked actually from doing more of those kind of things. And he's willing to work with me on it. And I've reached a point where I decided I'm going to cooperate. Astrologically, I tell people to cooperate when you have a heavy transit, cooperate with what the planet is asking, what the universe is asking of you through that transit. But one big breakthrough for me was when I realized I'm really happy to be shown that I was wrong. Where the ego wants to defend itself, I'm right, this is right, I'm going to pursue this. I'm so happy to find, if I'm willing to hear, tell me something, because if I believe you that I'm wrong, I can save myself how many years of going down a blind alley. And so it's not an ego death. Well, the ego can't die because it's not alive. We just feel like we're dying because we identify with this wisp. And there was a wonderful quote from Baba on Facebook, and I was just scrambling through my phone to find it, but I couldn't. I just saw it yesterday. It was Baba saying, it's time to begin dying. First, die to this, die to that, die to this, die to that. And it was serious, but it was not grave, what Baba was saying. It was begin letting go of all of this stuff. It just impedes you. It just blocks your freedom in me. Those are some thoughts. Jay Papa.
Thank you, Tony. So personally, maybe this is just me, but I find the stories of how Baba takes stuff away from us very entertaining. When I'm experiencing it, it's not entertaining at all. But in hindsight, you look back and you see just how attached you were to something and the lengths that he goes to take it away. I think that really speaks to it. How much he loves us. There is nothing that he will let between you and him. And the stories are quite elaborate and quite fun because he doesn't miss a detail of taking something away, and he also gives us ample opportunity. And then it's when we finally decide that we're unable to let it go. We're no, I can't let it go. That's when he gives us no choice. And it's so much compassion. And then afterwards, you're wow, so beautiful. The biggest thing that I'm thinking about, and kind of when I wrote this, because it was so much of a big thing in my life that happened, that I was a competitive bodybuilder for 4 years. And this was my life. I was a top level competitor. I was 4th in the nation. This was a very big deal to me. My whole identity was wrapped up in being this bodybuilder. And I was getting closer and closer and closer to being the best. So, it's your whole life. It takes up everything. And I was out in Arizona and I was doing this. And it like wasn't fun anymore. That was kind of my first sign. And I was just like, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep doing it because I don't know what I thought I was going to get, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So then I don't do so well at a show. My coach is like, I think that it's time that you take a break. And I was like, no, I'm not taking a break. So that was Bob. I can see that was Baba for the first time, you know, being like, hey, take a little break, like turn towards me a little bit. And then I did another show. I couldn't get lean enough. Doesn't matter. I mean, I was like pushing myself really hard. Still wouldn't do it. I was actually trying to size up the division, yada, yada. That doesn't matter. Finally, I fried my thyroid completely. There's no explainable cause for it. Just like my thyroid died. Like it stopped working. It stopped producing anything. It just shut off. And that was the end of my bodybuilding career. Because yeah, I could still compete, but it was just like, it's such a hard sport already. And then to do it with that was like impossible. Then on top of that, I was still trying to do it while taking this thyroid medication or whatever. Top of it, I gained 35 pounds in like 2.5 weeks from this thyroid condition. So all of a sudden this was taken away from me. And then all this identity was, but it was like the best thing that ever happened to me. And I see now like the lengths that Baba, how attached I was to it. Like in the moment you would have asked me like, oh, would I have given this up for Baba? I probably would have said like, yeah, absolutely, totally. But I mean, I didn't, right? And what he took away is this thing that I was so attached to. And it's kind of like what Tony said, it's something that's not real that you're attached to. And the lengths that Baba goes to take it away feels so mean. But afterwards, you're just like, wow, you just lighten my load. Like I feel so much better. And so really what I was hoping to get out of tonight is those stories, like those moments where Baba has just taken everything away step by step by step, because frankly, they're very entertaining. They're like, they're comical to see how much we're like little kids who bang our head on the pavement. And Baba's just like watching us bang our head on the pavement until finally we're like, oh, I get it now.
Was it fun while it lasted?
Well, what'd you say?
Was it fun while it lasted?
Yeah, but it ended up
bodybuilding?
not being fun. That's the thing, is if I had stopped when I kind of got that first little inkling, it would have been fun. But then you actually spoil your own fun by holding on to it for too long, right?
All
Go ahead.
right, we have Rich.
Yes, well, I have a quick little story because I came in late, and that's why I going to keep this short. But so this is a very short story in my life with Baba. Yeah. And so I was younger. I was older than you are now, Margie, but I was hanging out, and there's a lot behind this story. But I was hanging out in downtown Denver, which at that time, you know, you could find cheap rent, and there were other people in blah, 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 blah. But without going into all of it, I had somehow, all of a sudden, I thought, God, you know, I was kind of messing around in the neighborhood. There was a spiritual group. But anyway, so I was hanging out with them. And
oh, wait, somehow you just got muted, Rich.
The last thing we heard is you were hanging out with them.
Rich, you're muted.
You're
You want to
still
take yourself off mute?
yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go, yeah. Oh, wait, you just muted yourself
I mean,
again.
Okay. I don't know why it's doing it, but I'll leave it on. I'll leave it on there. Okay. Well, anyway, so I was hanging out with this spiritual group in Denver. It was a pretty big deal. There was a community of 400 or 500 people, and, you know, they were vegetarians, but it was a free for all. It was the baby boomer days of ex-hippiedom, and they were pretty much, open to, but the point of this is that suddenly I started remembering, this is after a previous history, remember? Okay, I better check in with Baba. So I went and bought a book. I had given everything away, and I started reading it. So I wrote to India, and I wrote a letter, and I guess the address was in God to man, man to God, whatever it was. So I wrote to India, and Adi K. Irani wrote me back. And he said, I will be in Myrtle Beach, June 2nd, 1977. Yeah, he didn't say that, he wrote it. And so I thought, oh, wow, well, oh, I'd like to do it with it. And then it kicked in, what you've been talking about, Margie. It really kicked in. It's like, I can't go. I just got a new little job here. I have a brand new bicycle, you know, and, you know, I have a little cutchinchily life, whatever it is. Anyway, I'm just hanging out, right? But I was sort of enjoying it. I was young, you know. And so all of a sudden, I come out of this building at night where there was a meeting, and this guy and I looked at the bike rack at the same time. It's like, crap, they stole both of our bikes at once, you know. Brand new bike. And I didn't have any money. So the bike was gone. So I went to work the next morning, and I hadn't been doing a good job. It was really more than I was really adequately trained for. And he said, you're fired, you know. And so that's that. So in the middle of all this, I'm going like, whoa, well, Baba, I guess I'm going to Myrtle Beach. So I had like $50. So I bought a one-way ticket to Myrtle Beach and had a $20 bill. And this is no joke. This is a 24-hour bus ride. It's really kind of miserable. And it's day and night. And by the time we got to Pennsylvania, in jet black, no moon, the bus was going. Now I was almost getting dizzy. I had to get up out of my seat and go stand by the bus driver. Anyway, so finally I get to Myrtle Beach, and after 24 hours, and it's dark. It's about 10 at night, and it's starting to rain. So I take my jean jacket. And I just bought a little pack of vitamins and stuff, and I crawl under a tree and go to sleep. And that worked. And so I got up in the morning. Anyway, I had a heck of a time because I didn't know where the center really was. It was on 17. All I knew is there was a green gate. So I started hitchhiking down the road, got all the way to the border with North Carolina, and I knew I'd gone too far. So then I started walking back. But I'll tell you one part of the story that was funny. I started walking back, and I went down to the beach and started following the beach. Well, it was getting cold, and it was night, and the wind was blowing off the ocean. So I thought, well, I better lay down and go to sleep. So I went to this little, what they are, they're not really air conditioners, they're heat exchangers. And I could see there was this couple inside with two kids, and, you know, so I laid down under the window, under this air conditioner, and I started to go to sleep. And all of a sudden they saw me and knocked on the window and came out the door, and they gave me this little Christian booklet, you know, on Jesus, and he's carrying us along the way and all this stuff, you know. So then I started walking down so I got up, walked around, and I found this little closet under a stairwell, and it was the hot water closet. And man, I had the nicest, most comfortable sleep. And so in the morning, all of a sudden in the morning, I'm just snoozing away. And there's this guy with a broom kind of kicking my feet saying, hey, you got to get up and get out of here. He was the caretaker. So he kicked me out, booted me out real early, and went down the beach and started walking. Anyway, the bottom line of the whole story is I finally went back up to 17 off the beach. I was walking along and I saw this green gate, and I said, well, this is it. But there was nothing there. It was just a green gate. It turns out there's an old north gate that's green. It was only used probably by Darwin and some others, probably trucking in stuff. I don't know. So I hopped over the gate, went in, and I'm wandering around on the center. I'm thinking, this has got to be it. Anyway, that's my story of how Baba got me to Hair Spiritual Center the first time. And I did get to listen to Adi talk. So there's a lot more to the story, but that's enough.
That's a great story. And that is exactly what I was hoping to hear tonight. Because, you know, in the moment, you're probably like, oh God, my bike got stolen. Like,
Yeah,
it's horrible. Now I lost my job. Like, Baba's just destroying me. Meanwhile, he's trying to get you into the palm of his hand. Right?
My dog is attacking me. My dog is attacking me. Yeah, she's attacking me. Yeah, that's how it went, Margie. I mean, I knew that Baba was in charge, and that was the end of that. There was nothing else going on. But you know, I mean, Adi, I guess when Adi wrote the letter, that was an order to go to Myrtle Beach, plain and simple.
Wait, Peter, are you trying to share, Peter? I think you're muted.
I am muted.
God, Mercury's in
It-
retrograde,
It's
guys.
in retrograde. It's been a long day as well. But okay, I'll share. So this happened about 2+ years ago. I was playing winter kickballs, our first team. We had great team. It was like part Baba people from like the center and the community, and then part friends that I have in Myrtle Beach that I talked into being in the team. And it was about halfway through the season. It was right after holiday break. And it was just I was just having a good time, fun time. And it was, I'll never forget it. It was a cold night. It was like early January. I think it was like January the 4th or 5th. And the second game of our we always play 2 games each night for kickball. The second game, I broke my right wrist. I bunted, tripped over first base. I was safe at first, but yeah, I landed, I guess, hard in the wrist, and I didn't think at that time that I broke it, but I broke it, and it's like really, like, I broke the wrist. I thought at first it was dislocated, and a friend drove me to the urgent care ER type place, North Myrtle Beach, and once they said that I broke it, it was like I couldn't believe it. I was like devastated. But then, in a way, good came out of it because I had a lot of time to focus on Baba and like read Baba books and just go inward in a way to Baba. And I wasn't planning, of course, on breaking it, and was really upset. I had surgery and everything, but I would say Baba definitely took control that time of my life. And I was like, okay, Baba, thanks for breaking my wrist.
Yeah.
I did physical therapy and re-healed with that. And that was an experience, just getting to heal and like having his compassion, like, and also like the compassion through others. Like, people were amazing. People started a food train, and like every night or every other night, the area Baba people dropped me off amazing dinners, and I've never had that before. And yeah, that was definitely an amazing experience. But I hope to never break anything and never want to go in the hospital again.
That's
So
great, Peter.
that's my recent story about part of my ego self-dying.
Yeah, so Baba killed your ego by killing your wrist.
He did, and I was so
Did it
excited.
physically.
I was doing great in kickball, and yeah, he definitely did. All right, Tony.
Yeah. Well, I just want to just a passing mention that at the beginning of Jeff's chat on Sunday, I shared a story where I absolutely lost everything that mattered to me at that time. And I was 16, and it, in an instant it happened, and it was cataclysmic, and it was existential dying, it felt like. And it resulted in me going on a quest, and a year later recognizing Baba. But that you can hear on Jeff's chat if you want. But this is what came to me now was at some point, I was saying to Bob, I thought I was going to I worked at the UN a while, and it was the 3-month contract, and they were only going to keep a certain number of people, and there was a whole thing going on. And I was told, write your resume, because we're not going to tell people who we're keeping. I wound up working there for 30 years. But and I stood outside and I said, Baba, what do you want me to do with my life? Guide my feet. I'll follow them. Because if I know what you want me to do, I'll write a resume that's geared in that direction. I'll focus on that direction. And I pretended I was this character from the old Red Skelton show, a clown that he played called Clem Cadiddle-Hopper, with big orange shoes. And I just went ba-doo, ba-doo, doo, and I walked around, and he led me to, I'm cutting a big story very short, and he led me to a building which turned out to be the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I asked the guy, what is this building? And he said, do you want to audition? I said, oh, okay. And I was accepted. And then that was Friday. And on Monday, I was told I was going to be kept on at the UN. And so I wound up not acting. Years passed. And again, I was getting upset with the UN after 20 years, I guess. I said, Baba, this same phrase, this can't be what you want me to do with my life. And just get that. Okay. And he said, haven't we talked about this before? And so so I decided I would try and do a monologue, and I worked up something from Inherit the Wind, but I was kicking myself and I was prodding myself because I was chicken, I guess. I just was resisting it all that I could. And I finally showed up at some open mic thing and it had a whole bunch of actors there. And I got up and I did this monologue that I had developed, and they were all crowding around me and they wanted to know what shows I was in, where they could come see. They thought I was a professional, and that was my first real, So one thing led to another, and I wound up in my most satisfying role playing Max Reinhardt in a play called Shakespeare in Hollywood, very funny, fact-based. And I was a charming character, and I would get to talk to the audience, confide, step into a scene, dramatic, all of it was beautiful. And you could feel the love. And at some point, I actually heard an inner voice say, while I was talking to the audience as Max Reinhardt, an inner voice saying, next Broadway. And I was hippie generation, nobody liked Broadway, but it was interesting to hear that. Before the run ended, like it was a 3-weekend thing, it was sort of nominally community theater, although the playwright's manager came to see us, so it was a good production. Anyway, something was going on with my eye, and I was driving to the last weekend's performance, and I looked at the sun, and I thought maybe I damaged my eye when I looked at the sun. But right after the run ended, I basically got a diagnosis of a detaching retina, and I had to go for surgery like the next day. And you don't even have a choice to find the right doctor because it's a matter of your eyesight, And this guy was not such a great guy. He may have been a good doctor, but we were having a political discussion that he was what would now be called extreme right wing, and was much more extreme tolerance and understanding, and we all help each other, and he was really pissed off at me. And I don't know if he did it on purpose, but he damaged my eye. He attached the retina, but I lost all my peripheral vision from about here across. And I had a gas bubble, so I had to lie down, face down for like a month, not lift my head up. And after like 4 or 5 months, it was clear that this damage had been done. And I'd lost a big piece of my vision. And among other things, I felt I could never act again. Because how could I get on stage if I can't see half of the stage or 40% of it? And this had happened in like March of or whatever year it was. Anyway, so a year later, on March 4th, I get a phone call from someone who had been in that play saying they're doing an off-Broadway production of Phantom based on the book, not the Lloyd Webber Rice Broadway version. And the guy who plays Gaston Leroux, the author and the narrator and the main character, actually, just got a gig in Hollywood, and we all thought you'd be perfect for the part. And would you come and audition? And I thought, how am I going to get around the stage? But it was also the 40th anniversary to the day of my coming to Baba when I got that phone call. So I went, and they loved me right away. And I was in that thing for about 7 or 8 months. But I went into it like, I'm physically incapable of doing this. And yet when Baba opened the door, then it was all there. And Baba's love, I would say the prayers internally before I went on stage, I would say, Baba, act through me, play this role through me. And the things he told actors in interviews, before you go on, think I'm the greatest actor in the world. What's the harm if there's no ego in it? Or that someone else, he said, before you go on, say, I can and will express this part thoroughly. And I did. And Baba's love touched people in ways that like blew me away. That after the opening previews, a week later, someone came back, said, we were here last week, and you have changed our life. Your performance, we were going through something really horrible, and your character lifted us up out of that, and we found the solution. So like Baba was now giving me all of this. But oh, I'm leaving out one important part. So it was, how can I not remember the year? It was the same year that Erico and Heather were attacked. Eric Nadell and Heather. And that was in September. And I was just really pissed off at Baba. I was like, why did you not, you have always protected me. How did you not protect me from this? And now you're letting this happen to Erico and Heather. How is this a thing now in your work, a phase of your work? This is not, I can count on you to protect me. And I really held on some level a grudge. I mean, on some level, I held that for years until, and other things happened with the eye, but at this point in my life, it's just there. And I'm grateful to Baba for all of it, even though I'm not entirely sure why. But that was a death of my beliefs, I guess, about what it took to act, for one thing, and also what Baba could ask of you, and still you can be okay, even if you have a physical consequence. I just shared it because it sounded like that was the kind of story you were.
Yeah, beautiful. No, I think I love those kinds of stories. But you also said something really, really important that I want to kind of make note of is, Charles, Charles Haynes, we had him on the podcast, and he said this, and it was just like, the way he said it was so beautiful, but it's like, Baba has to destroy our idea of what he is. And sometimes that is the most painful thing and like the hardest death to go through, because it feels like a total betrayal, right? We first come to Baba. I mean, I think everybody can probably relate to this. I mean, Peter and I were born into Baba family, and so is Josh. So it's maybe a little bit different, but I know I've had this experience where like you have your honeymoon period with Baba, right? Baba is gonna, like Tony said, gonna protect you from everything. He's just this like beautiful thing in your life. And then all of a sudden he does something and you're like, hold on, this isn't what I signed up for. Like, you tricked me, right? Like, you gave me all this love and bliss, and now what? I have to go back to the real world. And then, we create another idea of him, and we have to keep shattering it. And it's really difficult because, we're not supposed to, the only thing we're supposed to be able to count on is him. But what happens is we're no longer counting on him. We're counting on our idea of him. And he has to come and take that away. And that is so painful and so hard. So has that ever happened to any of you? And like, what did it look like? Or how did you get to a place where you accepted Baba for the even bigger version of him that he was showing you? All right, we got Rich.
Well, believe it or not, at my age, 74, but I'm going through some of that now, or the last few years. And what it has to do with is, in my life, I had to really learn a craft, like craftsmanship, I was a mechanic, but I learned several things about myself. I lost a really good job, but that job was about fitting into a slot. And in order for me to be me, they wouldn't really tolerate that. So I ended up getting a job where I was in complete control of my work life, which was probably more suitable for me. Didn't have all the bennies, but it was a great learning experience to develop my own energy and talents. But speaking more directly to what you're talking about, I think I thought from the beginning, some kind of idealized view of a lot of things, but I thought Baba would just sort of Christian save me, right? I'll just run through this stuff and, Baba will take care of it, I'll be okay. I'm going to go to Baba heaven. That's where I am headed, Baba heaven. And then it turns out, it turns out that in the last few years, I'm not so much in heaven anymore. It's like, but I know that Baba is more real than I am. I mean, it's just a fact for all of us, Baba is reality itself. And so how do I adjust to that? Because I mowed the lawn today and I'm out there tooling along and I'm older and I'm tired, but I'm thinking, I really enjoy this because I planted the lawn and it's all green and but then all of a sudden I started thinking about Baba, and the only way I could keep that going was to try to sing one of the old arties, just to keep my mind on Baba while I was pushing the mower. But because it's so hard for me to realize that Rich, we exist, but we exist in his dream. And I don't know, he has to do anything, I guess, to wake us up. But I think Baba's work is getting more intense. Really. I mean, maybe it's just my age, but I think it's getting more intense, period. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Rich.
And Tina.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going through now is my only child. My son has not spoken to me in a year and a half, and he won't let me see his son. And I just feel very bereft. Mother's Day is coming up, and it's just so torturous. And I hate Baba for putting me through this.
Doesn't deter him.
No.
That hate doesn't scare him. Just keep giving. It's like what Jeff says, it's give it over to Baba, if you feeling hate, give the hate over to him. You can say, Baba, I am so attached to this, so I need you to handle the attachment. A lot of times.
I've been trying everything, Margi. I've been chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, doing it all. Nothing helps.
Well, we're sending you love. We're thinking about you.
Thank you.
Yep, we're sending you love, Tina. All right, next up, Ron.
Rich mentioned Baba's work, and it reminded. Well, I was reminded when also you mentioned Charles. I don't have a personal story. At least I can't. I'm not thinking of one right now that fits in with this. But I've heard a story that I think fits really nicely into it, which is, and I'm not going to tell all the background. I just don't feel quite comfortable enough. Maybe somebody can do it for me. But it has to do with Charles Haynes, who back in the 90s, maybe 80s, 90s, went through a very harsh experience, an adverse experience while living in Myrtle Beach. And he was getting a lot of discrimination against him and Chris, who he was living with, and at Jane's house. And Jane had requested of the board that Charles become the president of the board, or whatever it is, the manager of the Mayor's Spiritual Center, something like that. But there was a lot of people that were against that because they thought that there were probably a lot of different reasons why they were against it. I don't want to boil it down to just one thing, but it had to do with the people who lived nearby in the community would not have thought it was appropriate to have somebody who was homosexual to be in charge of the center. They would have been suspect or something, whatever they were thinking. I'm not sure why they were thinking it, but it was back in the 80s and 90s, which was a different time than things are now. And these were Baba people that were railing against him, and some of them long-time Baba people. And Charles was really upset. He didn't know what to do, where to turn, and he was questioning everything about himself and about his situation and what he should do and all this kind of thing, beside himself. Now, what happened was there was a Baba lover from Myrtle Beach who was in Monterey Hall in Marizod, and Erich called him over, and he said, "I have a message that I want you to deliver to Charles, and don't write it down, just remember it. Very, very easy to remember, but I want you to tell Charles that this is the message that I was giving to him." And that is, he said, Mayor Baba's work is greater than Mayor Baba. And this did mean something to Charles. And I mean, if anybody would like to comment on what the significance of that might mean, I know what I think it is, but it might be interesting if somebody else could say what that might mean in the situation that Charles was in, that Erich would say that.
Well, what do you think it means?
You want me to tell you what I think? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I think is that we all have different ideas about who Baba is and what he's like. It's all in our own concept. I mean, Baba tells us he's this or that, but if you ask 10 Baba lovers, you'd probably get close to 10 different answers as to who Baba is and what he stands for and what he does. I mean, we've already heard it from these stories, that people have said what they expected Baba would do or he didn't do, or all these kinds of things. But that is personal, really. I mean, it's our own personal perspective on Baba. But Baba's work goes beyond anything like that, because we can't have expectations about Baba's work. It's so beyond our ability to understand his work. I mean, we might understand a little bit of it, but the scope of it is huge. And the whole purpose of it is so divinely his that we really won't know. So I think that's the gist of it for me. That's what I got it.
Yeah. Beautiful. No, it's true. We have no idea why he does the things that he does. And for us to try to fathom it, it's, like, oh, Baba, that wasn't very godly of you to work things out in that way. It's like, who are we to know? I mean, he could come in and have the whole world being taken over by, excuse this is politics, but taken over by Donald Trump. And, we'll be thinking like, oh God, what is Baba doing? Like, he doesn't know what and meanwhile, Baba's going, I got it all figured out.
Well, Charles had a video on YouTube. I don't know when it was recorded, but he talked about the loss he felt. He questioned Baba, questioned his relationship with Baba. Jeff would know a lot about that story. I heard rumors about it.
Maybe we can pan back to Jeff. Well, unless he's got something he wants to say. He's making that face where he goes, oh.
Jeff, did you hear? Yeah. You came in after I started to tell the story, I think.
You're muted, Jeff. You're talking to yourself.
I just now got free.
Yeah.
The story was what?
The story was about Charles back in whenever it was, where he was getting a lot of flack from the community, and they didn't want him to participate on the board or be the president of the board and stuff like this, and not to live on the center, and with Chris, that whole thing. You were there, so you know more specifically probably than I only heard things, but there was a lot to be heard. A lot of people said a lot of things, and then I also heard Charles.
A few people said some, but overall, I circulated a petition. Almost everybody was all for him. And there are just a few, but that handful of people did really hurt him profoundly.
So the thing that I brought up and that I heard him say at a meeting once was that somebody brought back a message from Erich, and Erich wanted Charles to know this idea that Mayor Baba's work is greater than Mayor Baba. So
Mhm.
I just was saying what I thought the significance of that saying is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you
Yeah,
ever
Baba
heard
said
that.
even his name was greater than he was. You know, it's incredible, some of the things that Baba said. Yeah, but yeah, my work is greater than I am. These are a little hard to fathom. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, if you got something else, we'll come back to you, but let's go on to Tony, who's got his hand up.
I didn't plan to raise my hand again, but as Tina knows, my daughter has not spoken to me for about a year and a half. And when she was younger, she kind of kept my grandson distant from me a lot. Go figure, I don't know. I think it's because she's got Baba in a little compartment of her mind. And whenever she sees me, I'm so Baba, you know, that it draws attention where she doesn't want it. That's what my guess. But anyway, back in like 2007, 2008, I studied neurolinguistic programming with two really very good teachers in New York. They're a married couple. And then I went on to study with them Ericksonian hypnosis, and which is all about your unconscious knows what you need. You can trust the guidance that you get. Just go in within yourself and find out what it is you know you need. And I really admired this guy. He was, among other things, I noticed that in the hypnosis class, and I don't think anyone else saw this, he would plant subliminal suggestions that we would learn this really well and put it to very good use. So I had a lot of respect for his compassion and his authenticity. And at some point, I needed to do some therapy work. And he had just gotten certified as a licensed mental health counselor. So I started working with him, and I still am all these years later. And often it feels like, and it's all Baba stuff I'm talking about with him, and about my relationship with Baba and stuff like this that we talk about here. And he totally gets it. And it is so tuned in. So most recently, a few weeks ago, I was saying this thing with my daughter, Clara. I'm trying to surrender it to Baba, to give it to Baba, to put it in Baba's hands. And I'm really good at that, but I can't seem to do this where my daughter Clara is concerned. And I love her so much. I loved her so much. Anyway, in neurolinguistic programming, they say that we have different ways of perceiving. And to simplify it, some of us are visually oriented, some are orally oriented, and some of us are more kinesthetic, feelings and touch, and emotion. And I'm clearly a kinesthetic type. And so without us talking about it, he was putting two and two together. And we do a little trance work at the end, 15 minutes. And in the trance work, he had picked up from my own words, which is how you work it with Ericksonian. You hear the client's spoken need about the difficulty of putting it in Baba's hands, putting this, everything I've got going on about Clara into Baba's hands. And he said, see yourself. He's much more subtle than this and flowing, but the gist was, see yourself holding on to this, and now see yourself putting it into Bob, literally, physically putting it into Baba's hand. And I was so thrilled that he had hit on this thing that it had not occurred to me to do that. And I internally, I reached out and I just put it in Baba's hands, moved my hands and let it go. And this is Baba. So doing that is real. And basically my situation, my internal situation has changed since then. Now, I did have what I thought was a slipping back into that whole horrible thing that I was feeling, but it wasn't. It was just, there was something that Baba wanted me to understand about Clara, and I could understand it without holding on to her, so physically putting it in his hands and then removing my hands made such a big difference. Now, if you're visually oriented or orally, it would be different, I suppose. But I've been through it. I know, and there's no, it's going round and round in circles when you try, in my experience, try to solve it, try and fix it, try and make it better, try and reach out to. All I'm finding I can do is surrender it to Baba and put it in his hands forever. So it could be resolved tomorrow, 20 years, or another lifetime. I'm feeling very grateful about all this. It's new on this subject. So that's all.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to share for tonight on any of the, we've covered a couple of topics tonight, rather. It wasn't just, I love that we kind of spanned off of the original, but people don't really have anything else for tonight. Maybe we'll close it up.
What were the what were some of the theme that emerged, huh?
Well, so it started out as ego death, which kind of at first was more of like an attachment conversation. And then some people told some stories about, I mean, it's not, in the moment, it's not funny, but in hindsight, funny ways that Baba just ripped something away from them. Rich told a really nice story about how he came to Myrtle Beach the first time. And then we kind of got onto the idea that how Baba shatters our idea of who he is even.
Yeah.
And takes that away. So it's kind of been an elevator conversation.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share, Jeff? You got a good story how Baba ripped something away from you? It's probably funny the way you would tell it. You go, oh, wait a minute, Baba, give that back.
Trying to think.
Oh.
Well, the one thing that, I mean, what Tony was touching on, I've found that and I inherited this from Darwin, if you're proactive about giving things to Baba, your good, bad, and ugly of yourself, then he doesn't have to rip them away from you. So you kind of preempt, you preempt his method. Really, I mean, and to hold anything back from Baba is to kind of court some future thing where Bob will have to take it away from you. But it's hard because there are a lot of things you would like, I mean, for example, like I was hesitant to say to Baba, hey, you can take my job from the, here at the center. I didn't want to like give that to him. Because what if he gave that to me? I wound up working at Taco Bell in Dallas, Texas, because that's supposed to be better for me. You know what I mean? But I tried to give everything I could to Baba. And I haven't really experienced him as tearing away things from me. Well, I guess the garden and Baba's house, that was painful. Yeah, I've had some things, now that I think about it, at heart level, things that I put my wholehearted into. And the beautiful thing, I mean, I've found in my own life that by being wholehearted about what you do, Baba or life or people may take away the object of your wholeheartedness, but they never seem to take away the wholeheartedness. So you can move that wholeheartedness to something else. You know what I mean? So I was always for being wholehearted about things, and it's crushing to lose the object of your wholeheartedness. But but you can move that wholeheartedness to some new thing and get into it thoroughly. So it isn't a, I was never felt like something was taken care of me, taken away from me, and I just shut down. I still had my wholeheartedness in readiness to aim towards something else. So these are ways you have to sneak around the avatar.
Thank you, Jeff.
Anyway,
All right, we got Marcia.
Well, just recently I've had a whole bunch of little weird things happen. And first of all, I packed up my paint, so I didn't paint till this week. And I realized that I'm pretty attached to my art. But I felt really good though when I started to pass my paintings out, and I realized that I detached from them, and that felt really good. But when I wasn't painting, I picked up cooking and baking, and that was real fun. So you can switch to some other thing. But I also thought that my car was gone. I had it shipped. Quiet, could you? Let me give her a cookie.
Marcia, we're going to come and get Gidget and take him away from you.
No, you can't have her. She's gotten better, and she likes being home too. She's great. Yeah, she's a great dog. She just let me know she wanted a treat, and she'd shut up. We trained her, remember, to not to bark when people applaud when in the meeting place. But anyway, so I've been away from painting for a while because I packed up my paints when I went to the Hermitage for the last 10 days of my stay. So I started cooking, and then I had to pack up my car with all my belongings and everything. And so I said I substituted cooking, which feels really good. So I guess you can turn what you do so it actually was taken away from me by Baba for a while. And I realized that I've been pretty attached to, I know the work that I do comes from Baba, but you have to be careful with your ego about being attached to it. So it was really very wonderful when I started giving my paintings away. It actually felt good. And I felt like that was one of the things that he'd taken away from me, was being attached to that. But then when I was getting ready to leave, my car was supposed to be picked up by a transport company. And I changed where the location was, but the dispatcher didn't tell the person. So I missed my airplane flight. And I went to the drop-off place where I'm supposed to bring my car. And the guy calls me up, and he barely speaks English. And he says, well, where are you? And I said, well, I'm at the Kroger in North Myrtle Beach. And he's back at Galleria, over there. And so I was an hour late, and lo and behold, I never really wanted to leave. So I ended up going to the airport, and I was an hour late because of this mix-up, But the biggest incident was the guy drove up in a car. I don't know how he drove up. He had flip-flops on, and he was, and he took pictures of my car, and I signed his little tablet. And then he took and drove away my car. And then the lady from the gas station came and said, oh, he stole your car. And I said, no. And I realized, wow, there's no, big thing to put the car on. So I almost panicked, and I caught myself, and I said, this is a Baba situation. He's really trying to get me, So my friend Jackie was going to pick me up. She couldn't find me. And then I finally get in the car, and the lady at the place said, call the police. The longer you wait. And I said, you know what? If I lose everything in the car, there was more art. And I said, and everything. I said, all that can be replaced, which was really hard for me because I had all my favorite things in the car. So I said, I felt like, then I went and thought, well, okay, what am I going to do now? My car might be gone. So I went back to the original email with the company, and he said, oh no, the guy picked up the car, and I got to stay longer. But I went to the airport, and the airport was very eerie. This was a Baba thing. I don't know if I said this on another meeting, but I'm going to repeat it. The airport at 4:00 in the afternoon, which you would think would be booming in Myrtle Beach, there was nobody there. So I walked in the entrance, and my friends were waiting outside with the car in case. And I walked in, and there was nobody there but a lady at the end of the counter for the airplane. And she was about 80 years old, right? Really old. And she told me she had been airplane mechanic, one of the first women airplane mechanics. And I said, okay. And then I said, well, I need to board the plane, because it was still time to board. And she said, oh no, you can't go because you didn't check your baggage. And she said, there's no more flights for today, right? So I had to take a flight that was going to put me in Newark, New Jersey all day. And then she said, you can go out tomorrow. And I said, well, don't you have any flights that are nonstop? And she said, oh yeah, on Saturday. So I said, oh, like I'm thinking chuckle, too bad, right? And she booked everything and everything went smooth. And I got to do this funny moon thing, you know, and all the stuff that was going on. But I never wanted to leave. He worked it out. So everything happened so that I could stay. And I didn't attach to feeling that bad about it. I just figured, well, whatever happens, it's in his hands. And he truly always, and then I came home and I sang Twinkle Twinkle on the Shy Woman concert. And my little neighbor upstairs is 6 years old. And she comes down to give me a present. And she gives me a bag that says Twinkle Twinkle on it. I mean, how funny is that, right? So just Baba shows you, I mean, he's really kicking butt, I'm telling you. But I feel like when I went there last year, when I was thinking all year about, should I really be doing this? I thought about, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I knew there were things that I wanted to work on that were blocking me. And I always said the same thing as Margie says, he does things in a way that you can handle it. But in this trip where I was there, he really attacked everything. It was like, oh my God. So I came out and I'm here and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to lose how I feel in Myrtle Beach. I was like, oh, I'm going to miss the ocean and I'm going to miss this. But what I realized is when I came back, I still feel the same way that I was when I was there. And it didn't matter that I felt like I'm free, you know, so I'm really happy. Anyway, sorry to blab so much, but I might as well put that on there for posterity, right? Okay, Jay Baba.
No, thank you for sharing. I always appreciate it when you share. But yeah, I like those stories. All right.
Still shy about being out on Facebook in public, you know. Got to be careful, you know, what you put out there too, you know.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like we have Ron.
Jeff's last statement and commentary reminded me I do have a story, but it really is actually maybe the exact opposite of the kinds of stories that are being called for in an interesting way. So I was going to these various Sahavases over here on the West Coast, both in LA and then at Meharana, around where I live now. So I would go once or sometimes twice, 3 times a year, and they would always have a dooney and have something of, you know, I would have to come up with something creative. I tried to be as creative as I could with what I would put in, some type of thing that I was attached to, so that every time I would think of that, I would think of Baba. You know, I would, you know, something like the very first one that I did after Bao explained what he thought the best kind of thing to throw in was a particular flavor of potato chips. So that worked out really good because I would walk by the place where the potato chips were and I would always remember Baba every time. So in this particular time, the one I want to tell you about, I had been spending a lot of speech and energy and thought trying to encourage and influence people in the Bay Area Baba community that it's a time for us to have our own center, our own place, 24/7, a room that we can meet in rather than renting a room in a church for once a week. And I'm sure people were sick and tired of hearing me talk about this. I mean, it was probably pretty obvious, but so what came to me for this dooney was I was going to put in 1 year's worth of never commenting about the goings on of the center. I would never say anything about it, never voice my opinions about whether we would get a new center or any aspect of it. I was never going to say anything about it, and no comments and no opinions shared. So I did that. Just maybe days or weeks after that, they started talking about this one particular place. What about this for a center, you know? And so I went over there and looked at it with the other people that went there to look at it. And I don't even know, I'm not sure if people came up to me and said, what do you think, Ron? I didn't say anything because I had committed to Baba that I would not say anything. So I went on like that for for the whole year. And by the time that year was drawing to a close, there was a vote to sign a lease for this particular place, and we had a Baba Center within 1 year's time. And I had still not said anything about it. As soon as it got to the point where it was a year, then I started to comment again. But that was kind of fun. That a lot of the things that I was hoping to get rolling by talking about it happened by me shutting up about it.
Yeah, it always seems to happen like that. Bob he always seems to give you exactly what the original thing you wanted, right? Like if you paint this picture of what you want from Baba and you tell him all about it, he does everything to make you have to let that go. And then when you don't care anymore, he's like, here you go. Like, here's the consolation prize.
I noticed that too. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
when you let go of it, yeah.
Yeah, he gives it exactly to the finest detail, just how we imagined it. All right, we have Tina up next.
Yeah, well, my son has abused me for years and disrespected me. And maybe I just needed a break from that energy. But then COVID hit and it destroyed my work. And so I just lost everything. And I got into wearing hazmat suits. I was afraid to even empty the garbage across the hall. And it was just a horrible, horrible, horrible event. And I came up with a plan to Zoom these performances to libraries and women's clubs. And I got paid for that. So, and I got also unemployment. So it was not all bad, but it was sure as hell not part of my plan.
Yeah, you want to know the only way to make Baba laugh? Tell him your plans.
Yeah. I hate him. I just hate him so much right now.
Yeah, like I said,
he's taken it all away. And then I tore my meniscus.
He does say to be honest about how you feel, that you can't hide anything from him. He knows the truth, right? Yeah.
I don't even believe in Baba anymore. I really don't.
It's not about belief. That's the whole point. There is no belief with Baba. He's beyond the intellect. Totally. There's only, other people have made it very clear, it's only surrender that brings you into him. Because you are Baba. You're not something else.
I think I'm an atheist.
Well, on that note, I have a really beautiful quote that I've been wanting to share, unless somebody else has something for the night. No, maybe not. This is
a beautiful book. I could open it and it always opens to the right thing. Do you want me to? Or you want to do your
go
quote?
for it.
Okay. Okay, this is Mayor Baba calling, and it's just open to 54. Surrender to my will. If you wish to live perpetually, then crave for the death of your deceptive self at the hands of complete surrender to me. To completely surrender to my will, your heart must be pure and your mind empty of all thoughts. All those who surrender themselves in love to me will see, adore, and realize the reality behind my form. Dust has no thought of its own, whether it is trampled upon, or applied to the forehead of a man, or remains suspended in air or water. It is all the same to it. I tell you, there is no truer and better example of complete surrender than becoming like dust. Spiritual advancement is a succession of one surrender after another until the goal of the final surrender of the separate ego life is achieved. The last surrender is a complete surrender equivalent to the attainment of truth. 55, have complete faith in me. If you have rock-like faith in God and flame-like love for him, nothing in this world will affect you. Misery will not trouble you. Flattery will not touch you. Happiness will not humor you. Such faith and love will cause you to rise above the imaginary phenomenon and make you understand that God alone is real. Trust God completely and he will solve all your difficulties. Faithfully leave everything to him and he will see to everything. Love God sincerely and he will reveal himself to you. This love needs no ceremonies and show. Your heart must love so that even your mind is not aware of it. Let nothing shake your faith in me, and all your bindings will be shaken off. Once you open your wings to fly, you must fly straight like the swan. Do not flit from tree to tree like the sparrow, or many things will distract you on the way. You see how he opens up to just what you need to hear? This book is like, oh my God, you know?
Wow, that
Oh,
was
thank
so
you.
perfect. That was beautiful.
Can you read your quote too? Yeah.
Sure. This one, might not be as spot on. I just thought it was a really beautiful, the Hafiz quote that was actually on Instagram. So Instagram does have good things sometimes, but it really was like, it just hit me really hard. This place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. The beloved has bowed there, knowing you are coming.
Wow.
Well,
Read that again.
this place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. The beloved has bowed there, knowing you were coming.
It's beautiful.
I didn't write it, but
No, I know.
And we did.
Look at all of us here together. I mean, with the pandemic, if you look at the bright side of the pandemic, we're all together from all over the world and even universally, we don't know. It's like a gift, you know? So yeah, we had to order food on Amazon and do all kinds of stuff, but it's all a piece of the puzzle, you know, it's a puzzle. It's Baba's movie. And don't forget, Jeff said, it's got a happy ending, so don't worry, right? Yeah,
That's what Bonnie said.
Monty said.
Don't forget it all has a happy ending. Yeah.
Well, you think it's gonna come up, something's gonna happen soon? Everybody keeps thinking, well, something's cooking, you know, because all these things are happening so fast, right? Anyway, doesn't matter. We don't have to know. We don't. We
We're
don't
just
know
the
anything really.
climax. The climax of the movie.
I have a suggestion for a topic sometime. I don't know if it's too deep, but I've always been very curious about next incarnations. I don't know if anybody has any real stuff on that, but I've always had this curiosity. And, maybe someone has it could be just fun.
About,
I've actually gone, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Tom.
I've actually gone back to the future and it's not worth bothering with. Sorry.
You know, Monty said, pack your suitcase well.
Yeah,
You're gonna
that's it.
open in your next life.
I have to learn not to pack too much in
One
a
beautiful
suitcase.
thing,
Right?
one beautiful thing that I've always felt very encouraged by is all the effort that you make in the divinely human qualities of patience, humor, courage, empathy, and everything. You pick those up in your next life and you continue. If you're 40% patient in this life, you wake up on the other in the next life, with 40%, you get to start out with 40%. And then in the course of your life, you kind of build that up a little bit. So we're moving, we're going to pick up all the efforts we've made in this lifetime are not lost. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You get to start where you left off. And that's a beautiful thing. In other words, you don't of course you have to learn the times tables all over again for the umpteenth time.
No, why can't we just take Algebra 1 with us? That's the only
Yeah,
thing.
they don't let you carry that stuff over. No.
I didn't like geometry too much.
But I did feel always encouraged that there is something that is carried over and you can work on. And your life gets better and better over time. Yeah.
And Rich,
Any-
if you send me an email, well, we can talk. I think you have my email from the other late night chats, right?
No, I never have gotten Jeff's or
Oh,
yours.
okay, I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I come into these meetings not having read, the preview.
Oh, because Jay Sema,
Hmm.
I should give you his number because he knows how to do that. I
Hmm.
don't exactly know how to,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll type
we'll get that
Jay's.
figured out, Rich. But I just put my email in the chat for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll write it.
But on that note, let's have a moment of silence, and then we'll unmute and we'll say, Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba
Baba
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Avatar
Avatar
Baba
Meher Baba
Ki Jai.
Ki Jai.
Avatar
Avatar
Meher
Meher Baba
Baba Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Well, guys, thank you so much. And